Nanlipat na naman si Besh. Ay, pila pa lang edad ko. Malilipatan ako. Thank you for that reminder. Okay. So, dilution test. For dilution test and e-test, this test can give quantitative results. Sa dilution test is napa-under si agar dilution and broth dilution. So, si broth dilution, amo na siyang nakaset up ang habay ko nga sa tubes bala, several tubes with several concentration because they have a lot of dilution or concentration. So, macro broth man na siya or micro broth. And then si e-test or ginatawag siya natin na epsilometer test. So, amo man na siya. May concentration man na siya karon nga makita ninyo. And then next, qualitative naman, amo na tong SIR. We are using the diffusion test and is specifically the Kirby-Bauer disc diffusion test. Ano ganing other name? Kirby-Bauer technique or disc agar diffusion test. Amo na siya ang other name ni Kirby-Bauer, the disc agar diffusion test. Ay naku, naglag na naman siya guys. Dali lang gida. I think bakal na gid ko another laptop. Char! Rich! Okay, so charot lang. Agar dilution method. Number 1, we need to add various concentrations of antimicrobial agents into the heated agar. And then number 2, a standard inoculum of bacteria. Standard inoculum, magambal kita inoculum gani atong pure culture or pwede man nga ginhimo naton halin sa specimen sang isa ka pasyente. And then, compare to siya sa McFarland standard. Amo na siya ang standard inoculum of bacteria. So this inoculum is spot inoculated onto agars containing antimicrobial agents. They are being incubated for overnight and then examine for visible growth and then determine the MIC or the minimum inhibitory concentration. Okay, so later, i-define natin si minimum inhibitory concentration kag si minimum bactericidal concentration. So this method is routinely used in anaerobic susceptibility testing and in research facilities because standardized man siya and advantageous for testing one or more bacterial isolates. Okay, sa seminar, balangan natin na namon likad ang paghambal niya sang isolate, wala lang, doon na ano lang ko daw, nakyutan lang man ko, which is familiar ang siya nak sa akong head, no? Isolate. Ang na siya maghambal sang isolate. 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 Wala lang. Share ko lang. Okay. So, growth pattern on an agar dilution plate. So, this growth is indicated by spots on the agar surface. And then no spot is seen for isolates. Isolates inhibited by concentration of antibiotic incorporated into the agar of that particular plate. And then next, this Sears replicator. Now, Sears replicator is the inoculator prongs are positioned above a 36 well seed trough that contains 36 different standardized inoculum suspension. So, amo ni sa ang ginagamit naton mag-dispense man sang aton na mga inoculum. Si growth pattern and then si Sears replicator. Okay, next is dilution susceptibility test. They are used to quantitate the in vitro activity of antimicrobial agent against the microorganism. Second, serial two-fold dilutions of the antibiotic are used. Either broth or agar dilution test can be performed, and macro broth dilution method is the reference method for antibiotic susceptibility testing. Okay, so this is the setup of our broth macro dilution or macro dilution broth testing. So first is add 1 ml of test bacteria or test microorganism. This test bacteria is from the patient specimen, no, nga ginpatubo naton halin to sa ano ni kani agar, halin sa original niya nga agar, and then nagkuha kita to sang colonies or pure or isolated colonies. Gintimpla ta siya sa NSS, and then after na timpla, gintimpla ta siya sa distilled water, and then this concentration sang aton nga inoculum, which is 1 times 10 raised to 8 CFU per ml, containing the 1 ml broth and concentration of antibiotics, which is in milligrams per liter. So gamay-gamay lang gini ang concentration danay ni antimicrobial agent naton. So, final standard bacterial concentration of 5 times 10 raised to 5 CFU per ml in each tube is being achieved. And then after that, determine the MIC or the minimum inhibitory concentration, which signifies tube with lowest concentration of antibiotics that shows no turbidity. So like for example, amo ni siya ang color green, amo ni siya ang aton nga may microorganisms, no? Color green may microorganisms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 has the concentration has the growth pasang microorganisms na may antibiotics. Okay, so may growth pa siya. However, sa second to the last tube, which is this one, the second to the last tube na color pink ni bala. Okay, so this is our MIC nga tube. Okay, so hambal niya, MIC, tube with the lowest concentration of antibiotic that shows no turbidity. No turbidity means no growth of our microorganism or our colonies. Okay, so this is our MIC, which signifies 64 milligrams per liter of our antibiotics. Okay, so our MIC is the second to the last tube, which is 64 milligrams per liter of concentration of antibiotics. So subculture non-turbid tubes to agar plates use this 0.01 ml standard loop because if you could notice, no, our standard loop, amo na siya balang habag kasi inyong may ang sterile loop bala naton or itong needle stick, okay? So, di ba may hole na siya. So, ang hole nga na is approximately holding a 0.01 ml na inoculum. So, amo na siya ang 0.01 ml standard loop. So, isa ka amo na siya signifies 0.01 ml and then it is ready for subculture. So, determine mo naman ang lowest concentration that kills 99.9% bacteria with 0.01% growth. So, si MBC naman is minimum bactericidal concentration. When you say bactericidal, it means ginapatay gid si bacteria. So, what is the minimum concentration of our antibiotics that is able to kill the microorganism? So, ang MBC naman natin is 128 milligrams per liter. So, amo ni siya si MBC, si MIC, using the macro broth dilution susceptibility testing. Okay, inhibitory or MIC means that concentration of antibiotics that inhibits the growth. Okay, so nag-stop lang ang growth ni bacteria. So this is measured in tube setup and expressed in micrograms per ml. However, si MBC, amo ni siya abala ang gin subculture mo from the tubes, okay? So MBC naman means that lowest concentration of antibiotics that can kill 99.9% of bacterial growth. Okay, so next naman, kung si macro broth nagamit kita sang tubes, si micro broth naman magamit kita sang plates. Okay, micro plates or micro wells ang aton gamiton. So So utilizes the principle of broth dilution, except that it utilizes micro dilution. Okay, so it means ang atong units na diri is micrograms per ml or ano na gani? Micrograms per ml. So we utilize this small plastic micro-titer trays with approximately 80 wells. So mostly, amo na ni siyang ginagamit nato no sa mga laboratory setup because lesser specimen is being used and reagent. Okay? However, daw makasalala na siya kung, like for example, storyahon kasang imo classmate, dayon wala ka naka dayon pagbalik mo sa ubra, wala ka nakabalo kung diin ka na nga micro titer tray or micro wells na untat or ma-drop. Because hindi halata no kung nadrapan mo na siya or wala kay man gamay lang gid ni siya ang iyang whole setup. So may contain a final volume of imagine 0.1 ml lang gid. 0.1 ml whole volume na siya si microbroth dilution testing. Next, let's go to gradient diffusion test. Your gradient diffusion test, known as epsilometer test or E-test, is a variation to this diffusion test and provides quantitative value and can identify the presence of antimicrobial resistance. So the test consists of predefined gradient of antibiotic concentrations on a plastic strip. Okay. Lagyan. Okay, so the test consists of, okay, liwat ko lang. Okay, so antibiotic strip is with varying concentration no, of antibiotic along its length. So may ruler na siya which signifies different concentration of antibiotics. And ginatawag siya natin nga E-test or epsilometer test because it has the elliptical zone of inhibition. And then MIC is being read for this E-test where growth inhibition edge intersects. Okay. So kung diin nagamit. Okay, here it is, the gradient diffusion test. No, daw electric fan ang iyang pattern. Okay, so procedure is first you inoculate the agar plate with the standardized inoculum or ang ginatawag natin na test microorganism. And then we place this antibiotic strip on the agar surface. Multiple strips can be placed on one agar plate. So we are, from this second picture, we are using 1, 2, 3, 6 discs. Okay, 6 discs, which signifies 6 different antibiotic discs with different concentration man. Okay, so next we need this to be incubated overnight and then examine for elliptical zone of inhibition relative to antibiotic concentration. Okay, so kung diin nagsirado or kung diin nag-meet ang intersection between the zone of inhibition, okay, so from this picture, sa first picture nato, no, what is the concentration of our antibiotic disc? Okay, Miss sino pa man? Si Miss Flamiano. Where's Miss Flamiano? Is Miss Flamiano here? Ay, di na si Miss Flamiano. Hala. Si Miss ano? Si Miss Molina.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, in our first picture, pila ang concentration sang aton antibiotic. Okay. From the first picture. Ang may IP na antibiotic.
24, ma'am.
Okay, so that is our MIC, no? That is our MIC. The 24 milligrams per ml ang MIC naton, which is 24 milligrams per ml. Kung di nag-intersect si zone of inhibition, that is the relationship that is related to the antibiotic concentration. Okay, next, or the most common method that we use for for antimicrobial susceptibility testing is the Kirby-Bauer technique. Okay, kung practical ni siya, amo ni siyang, or kung laboratory kita, amo ni ang inyo himuon, ang Kirby-Bauer technique na setup or disc agar diffusion test. This provides greatest flexibility and cost-effectiveness, limited to aerobic and facultatively anaerobic bacteria, and however, not recommended for slow-growing organisms and anaerobe. Zone of inhibition is inversely related to MIC. Okay, so materials and supplies, we need this Mueller-Hinton agar or tryptic soy broth. Next, the specimen or the test microorganism. Third is the antibiotic disc. Fourth is the sterile NSS and the 0.5 McFarland standard. And then sterile swab, inoculating loop, forceps, and alcohol lamp. Okay. So number one, we need to pick 4 to 5 pure isolated colonies. Why 4 to 5 isolated colonies ang ginapick naton? Because this 4 to 5 isolated colonies is equivalent siya sa equivalent na siya sa equivalent na siya sa inoculum naton nga itunawon naton karon sa NSS. Bali, these 4 to 5 isolated colonies will be put into a tube containing the NSS and then after, or CSV, and then after sina, i-compare na siya naton sa McFarland standard. Sa McFarland standard. 0.5 lang ang aton nga McFarland standard. So, McFarland standard na 0.5 is equivalent to 1.5 times 10 raised to 8 CFU per ml, wherein it is the standardized nga inoculum nga ginagamit for Kirby-Bauer technique nga susceptibility testing. Your McFarland standard has the component. Tandaan niha ang combo nga ni the 1% sulfuric acid plus 1.175 barium chloride. Tandaan nyo, the McFarland standard or barium sulfate standard is composed of 1% lang na sulfuric acid plus 1.175 barium chloride. Plus, tandaan pagid ang ml or volume sang kada isa ka component. So, we need to adjust turbidity if necessary. It's either we need to add the NSS, the sterile NSS, or we need to add the colonies. Ang importante is we need to have the same turbidity sa 0.5 McFarland standard, which is equivalent to 1.5 times 10 raised to 8 CFU per ml. Okay, next is trick the swab into the plated media. So first, we dip the sterile swab or cotton swab into the suspension, and then trick swab onto the medium 3 times by rotating plate at 60 degrees after its application. So like for example, wala ko sang diri. Wala ko sang circular something. Okay. So, Vicks na lang. Okay. So, like for example, this is your hindi niya makita, no, ang video. Yun at sarot na lang ka mo. Okay. So, like for example, this is your agar. Diba? May pang-Vicks, diba? Mga oldies things. Okay. So, this is your MH plate or Mueller-Hinton agar plate with clean. Okay, so how will we put our microorganism? Okay, so we dip the swab into the 0.5 Macfarland standard nga ginhimo naton nga inoculum and then i-streak naton siya. Diri na lang. To circle. Makita nyo? Okay, so makita nyo guys?
Hindi, ma'am. Hindi,
Hindi.
ma'am.
Na ano man na si maman. Okay. Asan na ba? Okay, so ari. Why ko be kakuha whiteboard? sorry. So consider nga circle na siya guys. Wait lang. So gusto ko maging perfect. Char. Okay. Sorry. Like for example, this is our plate which has the MH agar. Okay? So ang himuon natin i-dip natin sa swab, ang i-dip natin sa inoculum, and then i-streak natin 3 times. Actually, kung sa laboratory, is aga 4 times. O diba? Ginapa-heavy ang inoculum. So ang ginahimo is you streak this all over the plate. So first, streak mo na siya. Oh no. Wait lang. Okay, so next is diri naman. So dapat, ikit-ikit ni siya ang pag-streak ninyo. And then next, i-turn nyo naman. Paama-ama na. Actually, this is the one, this test. Ari siya. Okay. So this test or this procedure is one of the most enjoyable thing na ginahimo sa bacteriology lab. Okay, mag-streak. However, kahambal namon, di ba, or sa what you have learned, agar is daw gelatin na siya. So, samtang nag-streak ka mo, dapat be careful when you streak because may ginatawag kita nga arado, bala no? Arado, when you say arado, di ba, do ginabungkal mo ang lupa. So, ang na siya, kung bugat mo kamot or kung daw hindi ka pagawa sanay, so may chances nga ginaarado mo ang agar. Kung ginaarado, it means do gina-disturb mo bala or ginapangpakit mo ang gelatin or ang aton nga MH agar. Tamo na siya ang amo lang na siyang disadvantages. Pero aside from that, if you have learned to streak nga do easy lang or chill lang, so gaka-satisfy ka mo na kay feeling niyo daw expert ka mo. Okay, so mo lang man na siyang ma-share ko. And the next is the media used is the Mueller-Hinton agar or the ang Haemophilus ni Haemophilus true. HTM medium. Nalipat ko how kung ano ning HTM medium. Wait lang. Okay, search natin mamaya si HTM. Okay, so the MH agar or our agar needs to be used must be 3 to 5 mm deep and then the pH is very important 7.2 to 7.4 ang pH. And then next is kung MH agar is supplemented with blood or 5% ship blood to be specific. So we need to have this for fastidious organisms like for example streptococcus nga mga species. So di ba if you could perform the specimen no, like for example is nasopharyngeal swab, gin ano niyo siya, gin proceed niyo siya sa catalase and coagulase test. Kung sa catalase test nag-negative si specimen nato no, this has a tendency nga streptococcus si organism naton. And then after sina, dapat ma-plate kita sa sa MH agar with 5% ship blood. Okay, dayon makita niyo na siya nga pinpoint colonies lang. Okay, galagmay ang iya colonies nga color white. So, possible na si streptococcus pneumonia na siya. That is why we need to have this MH agar nga mga naka-prepare na with 5% ship blood because during the antimicrobial susceptibility testing, we have chances na makuha si Streptococcus, and then dapat gamito na siya because Streptococcus is a fastidious organism. Then next is this HTM, which is used for H. influenzae. This MH is supplemented with hematine, NAD, and yeast extract. Okay, if you could still remember, your NAD or NAD and yeast extract is source of V factor, no? V factor for H. influenzae, and then this hematine is being used for supplement for the X factor. Okay, para mag-grow si H. influenzae, if you could still remember, kailangan niya sang X and V factor growth requirement. So, si hematine as the X factor and NAD and yeast extract as V factor. Okay, so we need to place the antibiotics on inoculated plates. So, anong ginahimo? So, wait 3 to 5 minutes after streaking. Hindi pag dali-dalion nga after streak mo 3 times, ma-plant ka na sang antibiotic disc. You do not wait greater than 15 minutes, however, kag mag-plate na sang microorganism because mag-plate sang antibiotics because there is tendency nga ma-dry out ang gin-streak nimo. Okay? So, so if ever there is a delay in giving the antibiotics, there is causing false resistant, no? Sorry, excuse me, Danay. Okay, so 15 minutes before the disc are being applied, there is delay in 15 minutes, so there is false resistance. However, kung 15 minutes naman before the incubation, dapat may makakos na siya sang false sensitive naman or false susceptibility nga mga results. Like for example, liwat. So, kung ma-dry out si imo nga organism, kung ma-dry out si organism, may tendency nga mag-false resistant. However, kung there is delay in incubation, there is false sensitivity. Okay? So, kung false sensitivity, it means that malapad-lapad ang imo nga inhibition ari Okay. So, ang clear zone of inhibition, amo na siyang gina-measure naton. So, if this clear zone of inhibition will be enter the standard sa sensitive, it means that this microorganism is being sensitive against this antimicrobial agent. Therefore, effective na siya. However, false sensitive naman if there is delay in incubation. And then next, kung false resistant naman, ari siyang wala sang zone of inhibition if there is delay in application of the disc. So it means nag-dry out na si microorganism, there is no time para mag-react siya against the action of our antimicrobial agent. Nag-gets? Sorry kung doon nagguguluhan ako. Nagets nyo ang false sensitive or false susceptible and false resistant?
Yes.
Okay. Sure ha? Basta tandaan nyo lang guys, false resistant, delay in disc application, and then false sensitive or susceptibility if there is delay in incubation. Okay. So next, use sterile forceps or antibiotic disc dispenser. And then placing of antibiotics, if we have this 8 disc, we need to have this 90 millimeter plate, which is the medium size nga plate. And then next, if we have this 12 to 14 disc, 150 millimeter ang large siya na agar plate. So we are using that one if we have that 12 to 14 disc. And then next, disc 15 mm from edge of Petri dish agar. Okay, so from the edge, we need to measure 15 mm and then disc 24 mm away from the center of any disc. So dapat may distance sila 24 mm from any disk and 15 mm from the edge. Okay, so paano nyo na siya ma-measure si 15 mm kag si 24 mm? So we are using this blue method, okay? So nagets nyo na guys si blue method?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, si blue banta method. Okay, so next is um, uh, invert plates when you are incubating the agar plates because this is to avoid accumulation of moisture on the agar surface. Because if there is moisture on the agar surface or sa aton mismo nga agar with the inoculum, there is false resistant no due to heavy inoculum. Okay, sa pagkadamo-damo sa ila, hindi na maka-act upon maayo si antibiotic disc because ang inoculum mo is too much for the antimicrobial disc to fight it okay? So, false resistant kung may increase ang moisture. However, kung increase naman ang drying,